Hi, good morning everyone. It's 9 o'clock, so we'll make a start. I have to read this out to start the meeting. I am obliged to inform you that this meeting is being videoed. Members of the public are entitled to record the proceedings and are requested to give prior notice so that any additional measures that may assist can be put into place. Any member of the public who has any concern should raise them now. Right, we'll move on. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've had apologies from Steve Davenport. No, right, okay. Item 2, disclosable pecuniary interests. Nobody seems to be indicating. Item 3, the minutes. Are we happy with the minutes from the 20th of March? I was going to say I didn't remember seeing them. They'll be presented the next. Sorry, I didn't read that bit. Right, so we just note that. Item 4, public question times. Got any public questions? No. Item 5, member questions? No. Item 6, scrutiny items? None. Right, so item 7, discretionary school and college transport, permission to consult. Councillor Nick Bardsley.
Thank you, Leader. As you say, this is a request for permission to consult. These are not tablets of stone proposals. I accept that some of these proposals are controversial. They certainly merit careful consideration after the consultation exercise has been completed. I think the second point I want to make is that this doesn't affect existing users of services. It affects new applicants, as we have done with previous proposals in relation to transport. There are 3 separate items listed in the recommendations, and they're on paragraph 2, on page 2, changing the lower rate of contribution for mainstream school transport from the present level to 50%. The second one is to expand the contribution scheme to include SEND, that's special educational needs students, post 16, in line with the mainstream scheme. And the third is to withdraw the council's financial support for nursery SEND public transport. As I say, these are not straightforward proposals. There was an initial impact survey done quite some time ago, the best part of a year ago, I think, and that was for a much more radical proposal. So the proposal has already been changed quite a bit, and that's why a much more recent impact analysis has been done, and that's at Appendix B. I think that's all I want to say in introduction. I will in due course want to move the 3 recommendations.
Thank you. I know the deputy portfolio holders have had some input in this. Do you want to comment, or are you happy to wait and see what's said?
I'll wait and see what's said.
Right, okay. Any other comments around the table? Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I say I'm glad that the so-called nuclear option has been withdrawn, as said in the paper. I'm still disappointed to see it because it is a rural tax, quite honestly. It's a tax on students, and SEND includes students with disability, as I understand it, which...
Can I just stop you there? This affects the urban areas just as much as the rural areas.
If I live in Shrewsbury, I can walk and cycle.
Well, it's
If
a
I
long way
live
from
out
one
in
end
the
of
rural
Shrewsbury to
areas-
the other. I'm sorry.
If I live in the rural areas... and
This
there's
is
also-
not a rural issue. Sorry, I'm not going to accept that it's a rural issue. This is an urban issue just as much as a rural issue.
We can differ, Chairman. Many people in my area say it's a rural issue, and a lot of people around the county will say it's a rural issue, because if you need the transport and a bus and taxi to get to wherever you need to go, this is really, really hitting those people.
Can you give us an example?
If I live in Minsterley and I've got to get to Shrewsbury, I can't cycle, I can't walk, I've got to use public transport to get there. If I live in Copthorne, I can walk. It might take me an hour to get there, but that possibility is there. If I have an income of £16,000 per year or less, my parents are going to have to pay 3% of their income to actually do this. Is that fair? No. I see the nuclear option, as I say, has been withdrawn, but I'm glad that we can discuss it, because in 2011 it was looked at, and the Cabinet at that time made the decision that it would be delegated to the Director in consultation with the portfolio holder, and I've tried several times in the last few years to have that looked at and even go to scrutiny, and I've been refused because it is an officer decision. I'm glad it's out in the open. There are a lot of questions in it that aren't answered, but maybe we may be able to delve into it sometime in the future during the consultation period or when this report comes back. Because I noticed that the careful consideration word was used, and I welcome that because the effects could be devastating for some families.
Okay, thank you. Match.
Right.
Oh, can you use the mic?
Oh, sorry. I always consider my voice is loud enough.
Well, it is for me, but there's somebody recording it and...
Oh, yes, sorry, I always forget about these outside interests. Right. 4.2 talks about adequate public transport, and that's where I'm coming from. Because certainly in my area, we haven't got a adequate public transport. We have a poor apology for a bus service, and the contract is unfortunately held in Worcestershire, of which we have enormous difficulties on getting any cooperation from them whatsoever. So my concern is my post-16s who go to Ludlow or Kidderminster. They are abandoned. It's not so bad in the summer, although I still worry about what they're going to do while they wait for the next bus for an hour and a half to 2 hours. But we won't go down that path. But in the winter, I am concerned about their safeguarding side of it. That public transport is needed both for post-16 education, whether they are SEND or whether they are, if you like, ordinary children, if that's the word to use. I'm sure that's not a PC word, is it? Somebody will tell me, but I'm quite sure. But we also need it for health provision. So, for me, public transport needs to have a really good look at this within the context of what you're proposing here. For the SEND children, particularly the nursery, not the nursery, the young ones, to put them in a taxi in Clippery and bring them up to Sevendale for what, 2 or 3 hours, strikes me as being a real waste of money. But to me, I do not think it does the child any good. So you're talking about bringing some sort of hubs out into the more scattered areas. May I suggest that you look seriously at having one somewhere in the Clippery, Morton, Bridge, or Ludlow area, because carting them up to Shrewsbury is really not effective in any way at all. I welcome the consultation, and I'll make sure that people in my area take part. Thank you.
Good. I'm looking around. Nobody's... Ah, sorry, Leslie.
I'm just aware that in the past, people talk about consultations and stuff, and I think some people think it's a foregone conclusion that what's in this report will stay what's in this report. Can you just explain, because I think if I'm right, the early help consultations that we undertook and also the youth services ones didn't result in anything like what was in the original report. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah. Thank you, Leader. That's absolutely right. I do want to emphasise that these consultation exercises are certainly genuine. Those are just 2 examples. I'm sure there are plenty of others in other portfolios. The youth service changes that were made 18 months or so ago were radically different from the original officer proposals as a direct result of the consultation exercise and the feedback we had, particularly from the rural areas. And with the early help provision, and I'm looking at a local member for Market Drayton, as a direct result of the consultation, we have an additional hub for early help in Market Drayton. So these are absolutely genuine exercises. I would be very surprised indeed if these proposals come back to Cabinet unchanged.
What I would say to people like Nigel and Roger, it would probably be helpful if you put your comments in writing, you know, because then at least they can be taken on board rather than come to the cabinet meeting and sort of say, we shouldn't do this. If we could have, it is a proper consultation, so if we could have some written responses, I think that would be more helpful than just sort of coming to a meeting and sort of saying you'd have to and it shouldn't do this, that and the other. Let's have some positive written responses so we know where to go.
Peter, I would never say you were daft.
Oh, Roger.
Oh, sorry.
I do have a question, Chairman. From the budget book, and it'll be a written answer, I assume. From the budget book on page 13, it gives the cost of home to school transport as 10.6 million for the coming year. And the special education needs and disability shows a surplus of 192,000 for the coming year. Be interested to know how the surplus on the send arises, and is it appropriate to consider whether the council should in fact be considering saving 160,000 on that when we're already making a surplus? And also, as an extra to that, I'm still concerned how this council envisages its saving £717,000 on this budget item when it isn't going to be implemented, subject to the consultation and any alterations until September, which is only yet half of a financial year.
If you actually read paragraph 5, estimated net financial impact, we're talking £202,000.
If I can, Chairman, that's 2019 to 2021.
Yeah.
It isn't the 1920 year, which shows £717,000. That is 2-year saving.
Well,
So how is the 717 for this current year?
right. I think they're going to try and attempt an answer, but you might need a written answer
Yeah,
to
I
have the detail.
understand.
Yeah. Right, Nick.
Well, thank you, Leader. I can't answer in relation to the budget book, but I'm sure others more competent than I am will do so. But so far as the 717,000 is concerned, the vast bulk of that is happening anyway, and that process started some months ago with, I think, very sensible proposals for rationalisation, efficiencies. I'm very confident that the vast bulk of that saving is being achieved and will certainly be achieved in the current year. The 200,000 in round figures bit that we're talking about consulting on, yes indeed, that may well not be achieved in full in this year, but the vast bulk of that 717,000 will be.
Okay. Right, any other comments, Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Just a friendly question for Nick. I just wonder if there's anything he wants to put out there about the costs of the post-16 SEND transport. Obviously, there's details listed in the paper, but I just wonder if you can expand on some of the costs involved.
Thank you, Leader. It is a very expensive service to provide, and this is a proposal simply that a modest contribution should be made from some families. The average cost, and somebody else's arithmetic is probably better than mine, is £3,500 per pupil. So it's a very expensive service. We're talking about a few £100 contribution towards that.
Okay. Right, and I would stress this is a consultation exercise. Nothing is written in tablets of stone. And I think it's May the 1st, we're aiming for it to come back, and then that's where we will make decisions. So those decisions we make then, do they need to go to council, or has Cabinet got authority to sort them out? When it comes back to Cabinet, the Cabinet makes
It's
the
an executive decision.
we can make decisions,
Yeah.
right, just so everybody's clear.
Yes.
Right, okay. Right, so
Needs to be seconded.
yeah, oh, right, it needs to be seconded, I'm more than happy to second it. Right,
Thank you.
okay, right, so it's moved and seconded, the recommendations are there on page 2. Can I see all those in favour, please? Right, thank you, that's passed clearly, everyone present. Right, thank you very much. Let's end the meeting.